3 signatures. That's all it takes. Not 3 decades of bad decisions, not a market crash. 3 moments where a pen touched paper and nobody in the room understood what they were actually authorizing. Here's the strange part. Every one of these moments felt completely uneventful when it happened. No alarm went off. Nobody warned you. You were probably in a good mood. New job, new house, a life event that felt like progress, and that's exactly the problem because the fine print tax doesn't get collected in a single dramatic moment. It gets collected quietly, years later, by a version of you who has no memory of ever agreeing to pay it. Today, I'm walking through the 3 specific signature moments that cost retirees the most money, why each one is engineered to be signed fast and read never, and the exact dollar cost of getting each one wrong. Then I'll show you what to do instead, with real numbers, not vague advice. Let me give you the mental model first, because once you see it, you'll notice it everywhere. Think of your financial life as a house with a few doors that only lock from the outside. Someone else installs them. Someone else decides when they close. And most of the time, you don't even notice a door exists until you're standing on the wrong side of it, years later, trying to get back through. Signature 1. The retirement plan default. When you start a new job and enroll in a 401k, there's a moment buried in the paperwork where you choose, or more accurately, fail to choose, your contribution rate and your investment allocation. Most plans auto-enroll you at a default contribution rate, often 3%. That number wasn't chosen because it's good for you. It was chosen because it's low enough that almost nobody opts out, which is exactly the point. Auto-enrollment exists to maximize plan participation, not to maximize your retirement. Here's a woman I'll call Denise. Denise started a new job at 29, got auto-enrolled at 3%, and never touched the setting again. Not out of laziness. She meant to look at it. Then she got busy, then she forgot, then 5 years passed, then it just became the number that was always there, the way a picture frame becomes invisible once it's hung on a wall long enough. At 34, a colleague mentioned she was contributing 12%. Denise checked her own account for the first time in years and realized she'd been leaving her employer match partially unclaimed the entire time because her employer matched up to 6% and she'd never crossed that threshold. Let's run the numbers. The gap between contributing 3% and 6% on a $65,000 salary is $1,950 a year. Over 30 years at a 7% average return, that gap alone compounds to roughly $184,000. That's not from a bad investment. That's not from a fee. That's from a default setting nobody told her existed, sitting untouched for 5 years before she noticed. The plan default isn't malicious, it's just optimized for something other than you. Signature 2, the refinance paperwork. Refinancing feels like a win. Lower rate, lower payment, you did the smart thing. But buried in almost every refinance is a decision about loan term that gets treated as an afterthought, when it's actually the single most expensive line on the page. Here's a man I'll call Walter. Walter had 18 years left on his original 30-year mortgage at 6.5%. Rates dropped, he refinanced into a new 30-year loan at 5.2%. His monthly payment dropped by $340. He felt like he'd won. What Walter didn't calculate is that resetting the clock back to 30 years meant he was now going to pay interest on this loan for 12 years longer than his original payoff date. Running the amortization on his $310,000 balance, the lower rate saved him real money per month, but the extended term meant he paid approximately $61,000 more in total interest over the life of the loan compared to refinancing into an 18-year term at a slightly higher rate that matched his original payoff date. The bank didn't do anything wrong. The paperwork offered him the option. It just didn't highlight it because the 30-year option is the one that generates more interest revenue over time, and it's also the one with the lower monthly payment, which is the only number most people actually look at when they sign. Signature 3, the beneficiary designation. This is the quietest one, and it might be the most expensive because unlike the other two, this signature usually only becomes visible to your family after you're not around to fix it. When you open a retirement account, a life insurance policy, or even certain brokerage accounts, you fill out a beneficiary form. Most people fill it out once at account opening and never update it again. Here's why that matters. Beneficiary designations override your will. Not influence it, override it. A retirement account with an outdated beneficiary form will go to whoever is named on that form, regardless of what your will says, regardless of who you've since married, divorced, or had children with. Here's a man I'll call Frank. Frank opened a 401k at 26, single, and named his mother as beneficiary, standard practice at the time. He married at 34. He had 2 kids. He updated his will twice over the following decades. He never once revisited that original beneficiary form because nobody ever brought it up again after the day he signed it, and the account statement he received quarterly never mentioned it either. Frank passed away unexpectedly at 61 with $640,000 in that account. His mother, who had passed 6 years earlier without the form ever being updated, was still listed as primary beneficiary. Because the named beneficiary had predeceased him with no contingent beneficiary listed, the account went into probate instead of transferring directly, adding roughly 14 months of legal delay and an estimated $22,000 in probate and legal costs before his wife and children saw a dollar of it. Money that should have transferred to his family within weeks instead sat frozen for over a year. None of these 3 signatures are unusual. All 3 are completely standard paperwork that almost everyone signs at some point, usually more than once. And that's exactly why they're so expensive. They don't feel like decisions, they feel like formalities. But a formality you never revisit becomes a decision you made permanently on a day you don't remember, based on information that was accurate then and wrong now. Here's the pattern underneath all 3. Each of these documents was designed by an institution with its own incentive. A plan administrator who wants participation, a bank that wants a longer amortization schedule, an account custodian who has zero obligation to remind you your life circumstances changed. None of them are lying to you. They're just not required to help you, and the paperwork is built to be signed quickly, not reconsidered periodically. So here's what to actually do with this. 3 specific things, calibrated to exactly what we covered. First, pull up your 401k or retirement plan account today and check your actual contribution percentage against your employer's full match threshold. If there's a gap, even 2 or 3 percentage points, calculate what closing it is worth over your remaining working years at a conservative 7% return. For most people, that number will be uncomfortably large relative to how small the monthly difference feels. Second, if you've ever refinanced or are considering it, don't just compare monthly payments. Pull up an amortization calculator, run your current loan's remaining payoff timeline, and compare total interest paid across term lengths that match that same payoff date, not just the new lowest monthly number. The monthly payment is designed to be the number you focus on. It's the least important number on the page. Third, and do this one this week, log into every retirement account, every life insurance policy, and every investment account you own, and actually look at the beneficiary designation. Not from memory. Actually open the form. If it still says an ex-spouse, a parent who's passed, or doesn't list a contingent beneficiary at all, fix it today. This one takes 10 minutes, and it's the cheapest, fastest correction on this entire list. None of these 3 fixes requires a financial advisor, a new investment strategy, or picking a better fund. They require opening a form you already have access to and actually reading it, possibly for the first time since you signed it. The fine print tax isn't collected because people are careless. It's collected because paperwork is built to be signed once and forgotten, and forgetting is the default setting of being a busy person living an actual life. The 3 signatures are already sitting in your accounts right now. The only question is whether you go check them before they check you.